Greetings Indie Warriors and welcome to I Dream of Indie. Old Gamer Joe back with you for another review as we look at 2D run and gun shooter Spidersaurs from developer and publisher Wayforward.
I can do this!
Originally released on Apple Arcade back in 2019, Spidersaurs can be enjoyed either solo or with a local co-op partner. There is no online play here, and it will put you in control of either punk rock star Victoria or officer in training Adrian. Being inspired by classic Saturday morning cartoons, which I grew up loving, the story revolves around exterminating dinosaur-spider creatures known as, yes, Spidersaurs. These creatures were originally created to put an end to world hunger, but all hell has broken loose, and now it's up to you to get things back in order. You'll get a few hand-drawn cutscenes between each mission, and while the voice acting is campy and fun, the overall story, I must admit, I did find rather forgettable.
Yeah, BT Dubs, your giant miracle of science was a Trojan arachnosaur.
That shouldn't be possible!
Spidersaurs is a game that will feel familiar for fans of the 2D run and gun genre. It takes place across 5 different levels, and you'll be relying on a variety of different weapons, 12 total, in order to take down the many unique Spidersaurs that you'll come across. From annoying little yellow dudes that love to pop up out of the ground out of nowhere, to spiky monstrosities that will spew their bullets everywhere. The enemy variety is actually decent, though some of these creatures were admittedly a bit annoying to deal with. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of any bullets that like to lock onto you and follow you all over the screen, or enemies that will do the same thing regardless of how far ahead you've scrolled. Outside of the assortment of enemies, each stage will also feature an end boss, and others will have a midpoint boss for you to take down as well. This is usually in the form of a talkative roach, but the main bosses are actually pretty cool. A giant mechanical spider robot, for example, will offer up an interesting pattern where he juggles different vials of spiders, unleashing all kinds of odd experimental monsters. While you won't get many levels, each one does feel fairly unique from the last. From volcanoes to factories to jungles. Even at one point I was riding on the back of a dinosaur in a fun chase scene. This ended up being my favorite segment in the entirety of the game. As far as differences between the two playable characters, Victoria and Adrian, they start out with different weapons, but outside of that, I personally didn't really notice all that much. The more interesting thing about Spidersaurs is that you don't actually start with all of your abilities. You'll earn them after completing a level. You'll unlock a grapple hook that will allow you to hook onto a ceiling. You'll get a double jump and even a dash that can help prevent damage. It's a bit of a strange choice that you don't have all of these abilities from the get-go, but it is a story mode, and upon completion, you do unlock an arcade mode and a speedrun mode that will allow for a bit more experimentation. Just as you would expect, there are plenty of weapon upgrades that will fly across the screen. If you gun them down and collect them, your current weapons will grow more powerful. You can have 2 weapons at once, and you easily cycle between those weapons with the click of a button. The controls in general are also solid for a run and gun game, but it's the level design that can be a bit frustrating in Spidersaurs, particularly when you are in the 2-player mode. Any moment in the game that involved the screen scrolling downward or having to jump upward would lead to frustrating cheap hits and deaths, or worse yet, losing track of the second player altogether. I understand this is a problem in a lot of run and gun games, so I'm not going to totally hate on the game for having this issue, but it is frustrating, especially when a lot of these segments are so close to a boss. You get to that boss and you have very few lives or energy left. Thankfully, you are allowed up to 3 hits of damage, which is better than a lot of old school run and gun games, so credit the game for that, but it's still pretty tough. The weapon upgrades are going to be crucial to your success, as well as picking up food to restore some of your health. So weirdly enough, I ended up enjoying Spidersaurs as a single-player experience more than I did in co-op, just because of the way the levels are designed, but at least you also have 3 difficulty options. There's well done, medium, and rare. I did try all 3, and yep, they get progressively harder just as you would expect, and you're going to have less lives depending on the difficulty that you choose. So despite the fact that I did not love those scrolling sections that would drain all of my lives, the overall gunplay of this title and the platforming, the actual jumping, doesn't feel all that bad. You do have folks that worked on Contra 4, so they know how to make a game in this genre. It is a bit of a mixed bag due to some of the level design not being as strong as other aspects of it, but overall, it still feels pretty decent. As far as the visuals are concerned, Wayforward's gorgeous art shines through wonderfully in this cartoon world, one that reminded me of the classic arcade game Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Great brawler if you've never played it. The animations look great, colors are vibrant, and enemy designs are quite imaginative for the most part. Spidersaurs just oozes with style, even down to its portrait art of the different characters. The health meters, a great deal of care pretty much went into every aspect of the way this game looks, and it definitely shows. From the characters you play as to bigger, more menacing bosses, I loved the graphical style Wayforward went for. They totally nailed it here. And the sound design is also pretty solid, with a fun opening theme song and some decent rockers within the levels themselves, though they are a bit forgettable if not overshadowed by all of the noise and chaos of bullets and explosions and everything else that's going on. But in terms of visual and audio design, Spidersaurs will feel familiar for fans of Wayforward's games and welcoming to anyone really who has an appreciation for cartoon style hand-drawn art. As far as the PC version of this game, not a lot of options here, which you might view as a little bit of a disappointment given that this is a now 3-year-old game. You can't really tweak much of anything outside of the volume levels. You can't change the resolution, it just seemed to set to whatever my monitor was. It seemed locked at 60 frames per second, which is totally fine, and I didn't run into any glitches or crashes, which is always a good thing. In the end, Spidersaurs was a solid run-and-gun game. I feel like it was really close to being a great one though, with some better level design in spots, more levels in general, and a 2-player mode that had been better planned out. I feel like Spidersaurs could have actually been quite exceptional. Instead, you get a brief diversion that you won't be upset for playing, and at the least, it does offer some incentive through its arcade and speedrun modes to play again. It's definitely not perfect, but there is some fun and frustration to be had for fans of the genre.
I can do this.
Thank you so much for supporting clickbait-free content here at I Dream of Indie. We would now like to take a moment to shout out our brave indie warriors and legends that help to make this channel possible. At the Indie Warriors tier, we have Bill, Christian Cruz, Adriana Amato, CJR, PSC, Julian Colbus, Jesse, Ray Lynn, Marky Mint, Dave Harp, Peekaboo, Lex Noyle, Chic Geek, and Solaru C. At the Indie Legends tier, we have Jen Rose, Larkison, Mitchell Hall, Skeptism, Nathan Moore, Chris Jackson, Mr. W, Blue Francis 14, The Beefarinis, Business Cody, Chiron, Jace Glover, King of the Hatch, Ophidian Mind, Lord Metroid, and C. Coyle. Thank you so much for all that you do for independent developers, publishers, and for I Dream of Indie. Everybody else head down to the description box below. Let's defeat the gaming echo chamber and bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming.